Hi guys, welcome back to a brand new series. From today onwards, we will be starting the Q4FY26 ka result series. Okay, we go back to our old setting where we start discussing, what as the result comes, we will be talking about how the result has been. Right? You will see this week a lot of updates will come. Steel sector ka updates, bank ka updates, automobile updates, value fashion retail, jewelry space. All of these companies, companies in this sector, they will start giving out the updates starting from April 15th is when the result season starts. April 15th, say, since it is the end of the year, it can go even up to May 25th. The result season will be there, and I will try my best over here to try to add as much as value as I can, because every single time from when the result season comes, the first thing I ask myself is like, what can I do different, right? That is the thing. But most important, one of the reasons I also want to be so active during result season is I know a lot of you guys have full-time jobs and everything, right? So if I can just help you, like, to understand, which are the opportunities, which are the companies, you can read about, right? Wahan pe, you can give more focus on, right? You can just go there. Let's say if there is an opportunity versus no opportunity, you can give more interest, yeah, more time towards that stocks also there, at least that is my entire thing, like every single time, to provide you guys with as much as value as I can. Okay. And again, from today onwards, we've already started with the Q4 FY26 update. We have seen the update come, for value fashion retail and automobile companies. With the value fashion retail, that is it, we have three companies right now. We have Bazaar Style Retail, V2 Retail, and Ceil Kalamand. Now, before I start talking about these companies that are there, I would first want to talk about a bias, a mental bias that I'm seeing, and let us compare that to the result season. Okay. Now, the bias that I'm talking about is availability heuristic. Okay. This is something that was spoken by Daniel Kahneman, and he basically told, like, in a simple words, in a simple way, if I have to put it, let's say, for example, if you have to decide what the outcome of a situation is, your first instinct to that outcome of the situation would be whatever the recent memory of that situation has been. Now, agar मैं simple, I think if I put an example, you will be able to understand it much better. Okay, let's say, for example, over here, if you have watched, like, let's say you're going for swimming tomorrow in an ocean or in a sea, right? You want to do snorkeling, right? Your decision or your judgment, I think that is a better word, your judgment on how safe or how unsafe that entire snorkeling experience would be will come down to what is your recent memory of snorkeling. Maybe you have watched 100 videos of shark attack, or maybe you have watched 100 videos of somebody like drowning. So although probably there is probably only one in like 10 million people getting a shark attack, but since that is your recent memory, you will think that is way more dangerous. Although probably the realistic, if you look at the probability, not many people die of a shark attack, but since that is your recent memory, right, that is something that is played out, that is why you will feel like it is way more dangerous. It is a similar way of telling like let's say, for example, if you are watching a lot of news, right? Agar see, think about it, what is the entire news channel kya karte hai? Jo bhi robbery hota hai, whatever murders happen, whatever the bad things happen, they want to educate you on that, right? They want to inform you on that. But when you keep watching what happens, although right now the society that we live in, it is 10x 100x way more safer than what it used to be back then, 100 years back. But since that is your latest memory or your recall, you feel like although realistically we are way safer, you will feel like like, bro, like it's not as safe. It is similarly, I'll give you another example, is like, let's say when you're flying in plane, right? You might you if somebody asks you, you might be like, plane, flying in plane is probably very dangerous, because the first memory that comes with respect to safe and unsafe with flying is probably a plane crash. Or maybe like you might feel that plane crash is way unsafe, sorry, plane traveling via flight is way unsafe versus, let's say, on the road, probably traveling on the road is safe. But when you look at the stats, what happens is actually there are more deaths on road versus there are deaths on flight, if you see, right? Due to plane crash or various other scenarios. But since that is your recent recall, or because maybe you have never seen as many accidents in real life, when you're going in car, maybe that's not something that you commonly perceive. Or maybe when you think about going on road, that is not your recent memory. But when you think of going on flight, or when you think about how safe or unsafe the flight is, that's your first memory. So because something that has been publicized so much, and that is your recent memory, you think आपका judgment भी although realistically it is way safer, you will think कि like ये unsafe है. Now how does this play out in the market? Think about it, right? Market में, though even in both the times it happens, it is in bull market as well as in bear market. Now think about it, in the last 3 months we have only seen bad news and bad news and bad news, right? Like agar aapke bare mein, like, somebody comes and asks you ki, like, what is happening in the market, what are you going to tell? Bro, FIA is selling, March ka month mein, if you look at it for the last 20 years, in the month of March, this March, if you see, this has been the highest selling by FIA compared to the last 20 years. If you have also seen, what is your recent memory of the market that is there, crash on crash, your portfolio being lower on lower. So when these things are happening to you, when this is your recent memory, what happens is you think that, the situation can only get worse from here, right? It cannot at all get better. So as a result, what happens, aapko, your contrarian mindset on it becomes very, very difficult, right? Because now you will see there are so many companies that are there that are growing at 120%, 60%, 80%, and available at a peg of less than one because of this crash. But having said that, it becomes very difficult for you to deploy the money because of what? You're already thinking of only one thing, ki, like, crash hone wale, bear market hai, because that is your memory of the market. Similarly, जब bull market होता है, क्या होता है? Bull market होता है, again, you we think like, market is only going to go upwards, ये सिर्फ green में ही रहेगा, there will be no trouble at all, because again, when you are in a bull market, आपका क्या है? Portfolio is hitting all time high, कचरा stocks भी आपका 10x दे रहा है, right? So as a result, what happens? That is your memory, that is your recent memory. So you always will think that the market will go up, nothing bad can ever happen. So a lot of people, they will take loans, they will take all this margin cutting, and they will start trading, they will do FNO, and then when the bubble burst, gone, all hell breaks loose. So this is what I'm talking about, right? Now this, you will see, like, how did I connect over here is, you will see, like I told you, although today there are so many companies coming out with fantastic update, there are so many companies that are growing at a really fast pace, the management is coming and delivering on the guidance and everything, you will see that there is a bias in you that although Q4FY26 probably is going to be really great, you will see that many of you will not put the money, क्योंकि क्या होता है, you are falling prey to this availability heuristic. मतलब जो information आपके पास है, you're going deep into that, जो आपका memory वो है, rather than thinking in the reality that is there. Okay, because think about it, company में कुछ problem है, no, but since your memory is what, like, all this FI, ये oil, वो oil, everything that is there, you are actually forgetting the real thing that is there, जो आपका business का earnings momentum is intact. Okay, that is the thing. Now coming back to the Q4 आपका FY26 का result update, how does this imply again with all the three companies that are there? Now first we will talk about Ceil Kalamand. I think everybody is aware, right? I think everybody knows what the numbers are, right? Because अगर आप Ceil Kalamand को देखते हो, इसका sales growth is 13% when the guidance was 15%. SSG तो कुछ है ही नहीं, forget about it. जो store guidance था, they are opening around 13 stores, and the total store right now is 81. Everybody knows के like. But here is the thing with Ceil Kalamand also, right? Do you think this 15% का growth that they have shown, 13% का growth to be precise, do you really think it is very surprising? No. Again, how did this availability heuristic apply it over here? Management chila ke in Q2 and Q1 ka time, when they posted this 35-40% ka growth, and you will see every time over there on Twitter, you will see people are like, they were pumping. I mean, I wouldn't say they use the word pumping, but they were hyping up the stock when the management clearly told, ke like, I don't think we will be able to do that. We will be, going back to our earlier guidance, 15%. But since you see a lot of people on X and, YouTube talking about this stock, you forget the reality, that is what the management has told, and you fall prey to the recent, memory that is there, which is what the folks on Twitter are telling, right? As a result, what happened? You probably invested, never took an exit out, and as a result, क्या हुआ? Stock जो 150, 180 में था, अभी 95 में है. So do you see how again you do not actually look at the reality and take a decision, but you look at the recent memory or what has been happening around that, right? That is one thing. The other two things, V2 retail and bazaar style retail. V2 retail ka guidance kya tha, right? They will be growing at 50% sort of CAGR, when it comes to the store expansion. Have they done that exactly? Yes. If you look at it, the total stores right now are around 325. Okay, they've added, almost around, 136 stores over here. Jo guidance bola tha wahi kiya. If you look at the sales growth also, sales growth for the full year is at 60%. Immense volume growth has also been there. Okay, but the problem comes over here is with the SSG, because SSG that is there, SSG is at 8, the guidance was 8 to 10%. Although on a full year they have done 8.8, that is FY26. Q4 में उसका SSG that is there, it is 7.7. Okay, now a lot of people might compare it to bazaar style retail that is there, because bazaar style ka retail, if you see, it is the sales growth is 37. V2 ka is around 60. It is like way better. Has done 80% more than that of bazaar style retail. SSG for bazaar style retail in Q4 is kitna 3%, versus for V2 retail is kitna almost 7.7%, right? Now here what happens is when people will look at V2 retail and look at bazaar style retail, has it performed better? The answer is yes, but also do not compare to bazaar style retail कि like यहाँ पे क्या होता है ना, a lot of people will look at it and they will compare the जो fail हो रहा है उसको compare करके you will look at somebody who scored 60 and be like really good, but probably that person who scored 60 earlier he was scoring 90. Okay, now what is the issue with V2 retail over here and how does a bias play over here is, if you look at V2 retail, that is said, they're opening stores at a very very massive scale, which is very good, right? But having said that, you do not want a business that is opening stores at a massive scale but is compromising on the current store that is there. Okay, मतलब current store का मतलब क्या, आपका current stores में productivity नहीं है, either people are buying less products or you're giving a lot of discount, something must be happening. Because, and I know people will compare the full year SSG and feel happy, but here is the thing, right? Full year is also constituting of Q1 Q2 Q3. Maybe Q1 Q2 Q3 में कुछ problem नहीं हुआ था, but you will also see the expansion of store became aggressive as the quarters went on, right? Because first they told 50, then they told 60, then they told 80 stores, then 130 stores उन्होंने बोला था. Now maybe at that time when the initial guidance was given 60 to 70 stores that is there, maybe that time SSG was great, but now we are seeing aggressive store expansion, especially that started after H2 Q3 and Q4. Now maybe with this aggressive store expansion that they're doing, the productivity of the old store, and as a result of that SSG is affected. Maybe that is why Q4 का number is 7.7. Okay, I hope you understand कि like मैं इतना emphasis क्यों दे रही हूँ on Q4 and not exactly on the full year that is there. Okay, now I'm not telling something is wrong with the business because I know it is just a few basis points, point 2, point 3 का ये चीज है, I understand that, right? But here is the thing, why am I emphasizing it so much over here is, again what happens over here, the availability heuristic, how does it play over here is, we have seen, a lot of us have seen V2 retail that is there, we have only seen it go up, right? We have only seen it go up. We've seen that stock go from 350 to all the way till what, like 2000 to in that range it has gone up, right? Like that has been the journey over here, right, with V2 retail. So as a result, also what we have seen that the management has always come and delivered more than what was promised. They have always increased the guidance, done perfect great show of great show that they have put up, right? Absolutely brilliant business they have done, they have built. Okay, since we are only used to the good things that are happening, that is our recent memory of V2 retail, when certain reality hits us, right, it could be anything, we tend to ignore it. यहाँ पे क्या है ये reality? This SSG. Now see this SSG का thing, we do not know why it is 7.74, right? Like it could be maybe one quarter thing, maybe there is some sort of issue. We do not know. वो पता चलेगा हमें after the con call only. We do not know that at all, right? We absolutely don't know. At the end of the day, you and me are retail investors. We are not people who are investing. We are not mutual fund का कुछ भी. We don't have access to the management. This is our hard-earned money, right? What I'm trying to tell is, since we are only used to the good things, we tend to ignore the slightest problem that comes, because understand this, ये छोटा problem होके ही, ultimately एक बड़ा problem हो जाता है. Okay, I will explain you why I'm emphasizing so much on SSG, because I have tracked a lot of retail businesses earlier. You will come across this business called as Go Colors. Okay, Go Colors, Go Fashion, आपको देख सकता है. Even till today, these people are doing massive store expansion. They add around 130 to 150 stores a year, but you will see SSG 0 या अपना negative -2 पे जा रहा है, ठीक है? And as a result, you will see उसका sales ही कुछ नहीं है, because if your current stores are not performing really well, right, if they're not doing well, आगे जाके what will happen? Your entire growth is going to come only what you have to do expansion on expansion, but वो expansion में भी रुकावट आएगा. क्यों? Because आपका existing stores, if they're not making money, how will you fund the future expansion? पैसा तो आना चाहिए ना भाई, because ultimately you can't keep doing QIP debt and whatever you can't keep doing. There will come a point where your existing stores has to make money in order to fund your operations. That is it. That is the whole point, right? You will also see the same thing happening with what your Devyani, आपका KFC and Pizza Hut that is there, SSG. So SSG that is there, it is very very important for any B2C, any retail kind of stores that you see, because the existing stores जितना वो अच्छा करेगा, normally you will see SSG for most retail stores that is there, especially आपका B2C value retail or fashion, is 8 to 10% only, in that range only, because over a period of time क्या होता है, think about it, right? Imagine in your local area that is there, you have Zudio or something. How many people will come to that Zudio? It is that 3 to 4 kilometer radius only now that people will come. So over a period of time, SSG could be 50% at one point, but over a period of time it becomes 8 to 10%. This is very normal. But यहाँ पे my biggest fear with V2 is what, इतना aggressive expansion कर रहा है, right? That their focus is going completely only to expansion and they might ignore the existing stores. अगर existing stores में ये problem आता है, then what happens is, this SSG can again fall, 7, 6, 5, etc. And then ultimately the pace of growth also will come down, because क्या होगा ना कि like you know you're not being efficient with your business. Kal jaake, problems aega with respect to, your bottom line and everything that will come. So I am not telling there is a huge problem with V2 or anything. Please understand this, that the business is moving in the right direction. Stores open kar rahe, sales growth aa rahe, volume growth aa rahe, beating the peers also in this space, everything. But this slight aberration that you're seeing now, that hardly 8 hona chahta, but it is still 7.7. Is it a one-time thing? Is it a structural thing? Is there a really problem in the business? That is something you'll only get to know in con call. But having said that, you need to be cautious over here. That is all I'm trying to tell. Because why am I emphasizing on the word cautious? I'm not asking you to sell it, trim it, buy it, whatever. I'm not giving that kind of recommendation or anything. But I'm asking you to be cautious is because why? Again, the same thing, availability heuristic. Because we have seen the stock only do well, because that is our recent memory. Our recent memory is what with respect to that stock, right? The management coming and beating the guidance, the management coming and increasing the store count. Since we've seen only the good things that is there, when a little bit of also problem emerges, it could be a problem or could not be a problem, even a slightest negative things, we tend to ignore it, right? We tend to ignore that stuff because this is our recent memory, right? That is the thing. As an investor, please remember this one thing: you should be a biggest supporter of your stock, but also you should be the biggest critic also of your stock. I would say be the biggest critic of your stock more than a support, because as big critic you are, you will always find reason to sell a stock. जब आपको कोई reason नहीं मिलेगा ना, then you know that stock is a multi-bagger when it stays. Here मैं इसलिए बोल रही हूँ biggest supporter and biggest critic is because if you want to hold the stock and make a multi-bagger, no, you have to think like a businessman. You can't think like an investor. Because आप investor के तरह सोचोगे ना, then you will fall into all this bookish trap of receivables, payables, cash flow negative and everything. You won't understand. Business chalao, then you will understand, how all these topics that are there with receivable, payables in a traditional language that they put up, it's all nonsense, right? I'm not telling it is not important. It is just the way we are taught it is wrong. That is what I'm trying to tell. So you have to think like a businessman when you want to make a multi-bagger, but also at the same time, when it comes to exiting, when it comes to cutting, when it comes to being cautious, anything that is there, you have to think like an investor, right? Because if you're a business owner, whether it is an upcycle in the market, whether it is a down cycle, whether it is a good time, bad time with the business, you have to stick with the business. You can't help it. Apna baap ka business hai, so you'll tell, be like, "Arey yaar, I don't want to do this. Little bit problem is there." You will leave it and go. You can't, right? You have to stick with the business. But as an investor, this is not your dad's business, right? Baap ka business to hai nahi. So if not today, this, it will be somebody else. So that is the thing. Think like a business, think always think like a business owner, but act like an investor. Understand the difference between both. That is the thing. Although very fantastic number from V2 Retail, I'm pretty sure, if you look at VMart, if you look at Trent, that is there, they will no way, they will no way match up to the numbers in absolutely no way. But it is very important, jab ye is con call karega, we understand ki, like, iska why this SSG that is there, and are they still going forward, especially in FY27, are they still confident about maintaining that SSG at 8 to 10%? That is way more important. This is something you should be looking out in the Q4 ka con call. And I will tell you, if you guys have a holding in terms with respect to V2 Retail, get on the con call, pester the management and ask them, like, bro, what is the deal? Why did this happen? This is the lowest SSG that we have seen, but also having said that, what is the guidance, for FY27? Okay? So that is the thing. That's that about the result update. Hopefully, we see a lot good numbers that are there, especially the jewelry space, because I think value retail and jewelry space that is there, and certain hospital stocks that are there, they've really held up in this fall. So it also goes to show you the strength in the business. Hopefully we see, this Q4 FY26, it becomes a bumper quarter. When I tell bumper, I'm hoping for a great earnings momentum, because I have my biggest fear is actually not the volatility of the market. I'll tell you, my biggest fear is, my companies that are there, they just don't do as what is expected of them with respect to the guidance they have given. You understand, that is my major fear. Like, how do I put it, like, the holdings that you have, the companies that you have, it's like, they are your kids, okay? And you're just hoping for them, to perform really well. It's like a test you have given, aapka shayad, board exam they are giving every result season, and they need to really perform well. That is what it is. So yeah, and also just a final reminder that, the last 24 hours for the portfolio analysis workshop, make sure you get the workshop before it's too late, because starting from April 3rd, that is in less than 24 hours, we will be hiking up the prices from, to 5999 plus GST. We're going to be literally doubling the prices. After that, please don't come and ask, like, I missed the deadline, can I get it now? Could you please give me that discount or whatsoever? I will not be able to entertain that. So make sure you get get your hands on the courses now. Anyways, take care. Bye.